We grow and store all the veggies and berries that our family of 6 eats for an entire year. There are so many seed companies and seed catalogs out there, and sometimes it can be really overwhelming to know exactly what to grow. We've been growing food for over a decade now, and we know what works well for us in our zone and also what makes the biggest dent possible for us in our self-sufficiency goals. We're going to show you today what we would prioritize if we had only a small growing space to work with, and also show you what we do in our large garden that we've been expanding every year. It's been frigid here in Ohio lately. We've been getting snow, wind, and single-digit temps, so it's the perfect time to stay inside and dream up this year's garden. Cody's wanting to get more involved in the garden this year, so he has some things to add to our seed order, and we're taking on a brand new gardening experiment that's requiring some extra research.
Because we're more than farmers.
So first things first, as you can tell, I don't have many seeds, and this is very intentional. I'm a minimalist when it comes to seeds. I like getting exactly what I need and then using them up, because I found that seeds don't germinate quite as well once they are pretty old. So I just like to have everything used up. Another thing is that seeds are expensive and I don't like to waste them. I have found that seed orders very quickly add up, so I just try to get only what I need. This is how I keep my head together with varieties, because I'm the kind of person that gets really overwhelmed looking through seed catalogs, like all the pictures look so nice. For me, the key to growing a large amount of food is to keep things really simple and make so that I can focus on each crop. For beginning gardeners, I think one of the most important things to ask yourself is, why are you gardening? So are you gardening just as a hobby, or are you wanting to make a really big dent in your self-sufficiency goals in feeding your family? Knowing the why behind your garden is really going to help you to know what crops to grow. So some of the important things to ask yourself when you're doing your seed order is, number one, what does your family like to eat? I am a gardener. I'm not just a hobby gardener. I'm a gardener that really likes to make a dent in the self-sufficiency goals for my family. So I have to grow things that my family will actually eat. In past years, I've grown things like Swiss chard and turnips and different kinds of spinach, and frankly, my family just doesn't like to eat those. Swiss chard tastes a little bit like dirt, let's be honest. So choose foods that your family actually loves and will eat a ton of. Another thing to ask yourself is, how much time do you have to put into your garden? How much time do you have to preserve your food? Because if you don't have much time to preserve food, let's say you are working a full-time job and gardening on the side, you're probably not going to want to plant something like peas or green beans or currants, like tiny little things that take a lot of time to pick that are very time consuming. You might want to go for something like broccoli. You can just cut the head off and you have a whole bunch of vegetable right there. Or something like sweet potatoes or white potatoes or carrots. Those are in the ground for a long time. All that you have to do is keep them weeded and watered, and then you just pull them up at the end of the season. The first place that I start with my seed order every single year is I figure out what my staple crops are going to be for the year. So for 2025, my staple crops are going to be white potatoes, sweet potatoes, carrots, onions, and butternut squash. Those are almost always my staple crops. Also, kind of tomatoes and broccoli. Those are staples for us. We eat a ton of them. And if I had only those crops, I would still be making a huge dent in our self-sufficiency goals. Once I have my staple crops figured out, and then I just fill in the gaps with all the other little things that I have room for, like cucumbers and peppers, garlic, and what are some of the other things?
Michelle has a list here of everything that she wants to plant in our garden this year. And now that she has gone through all of her seeds from last year, we can see what we actually need to order, which is going to be most of it because she doesn't have a whole lot of seeds saved from last year. And what we're going to do, we're going to go through the whole order here, and we're going to start out with the things we would plant if we would only have a small garden. So like the bare necessities, the priority stuff, then the stuff that we would plant if we had a bigger garden, like we have, some of the extras in there. And we're also going to talk about what we would plant if we were doing a container garden, because we are going to do a container garden this year. Michelle's going to start trying that.
I get all of my seeds from the Berlin Seed Catalog. I've been doing this for years. My mom used this catalog when I was growing up, and so it's just kind of the only thing I know. I like their magazine. It's like very, very well done. The pages are nice and thick and sturdy. I was trying to look at another seed catalog this week and I was like, this thing is pathetic, and I just quit.
We've also had really, really good luck with their seeds. Like
Yes.
we've tried some other companies that didn't germinate as well, they didn't do as well for us.
And they have such good customer service. This is not a sponsored video. We talked about them last year too, and lots of you guys gave our names to them, and they actually came back to us and thanked us for all the new customers. So thanks to you guys, that was all on you.
By the way, we are in Ohio, zone 6A, so the varieties that we're ordering has a lot to do with that. So if you're in a different zone, you might need to go a little bit one way or the other with varieties.
So first of all, we're gonna start with potatoes, because that white potatoes are the foundation of everything. We eat them all the time. You can make them into mashed potatoes, fries, put them in soups. There's so many different foods you can make with them. They're just a staple for us.
And they're really, really easy to store. They go in our cold
Yes.
cellar, last all winter. They don't need any kind of processing, freezing, canning, anything
Yes.
like that. They're just super easy when it comes to that.
So I'm gonna get the Kennebec A, and I'm going to get 2 10-pound bags of those. I'm also gonna get the Yukon Gold, and because I have had an issue with viruses in those in the past, I am just going to do 1 10-pound bag of the Yukon Gold, and then I'm gonna do 1 10-pound bag of the red Pontiac. So that's 40 pounds of potatoes in all. That's perfect for us, but I will say, if you are still working on building up your soil, this may not be enough for a family of 6,
Right.
because for us, like, each year that our soil gets better, we get more and more potatoes back from 40 pounds.
Since potatoes are a root vegetable, they really need loose soil to get big. So
Yeah.
the looser your soil, the bigger they're gonna get for you.
If you have clay soil, your potatoes are gonna stay pretty small. It's okay, they still store okay. They don't store as well as big ones, but they're still gonna be good. You're just gonna have to plant more. Next on my list is onions. I shoot for around 100 onion plants per year. I am gonna up that a tiny bit. I'm gonna shoot for maybe 125 this year. Just like last year, I'm going to try to start some of my own seeds. I'm gonna try to start them in a deeper pot, because I think that was my problem last year. That's why they didn't continue growing. They just stayed small. I'm going to get Patterson seeds to start, and then I'm also going to get Patterson and Red Wing plants to plant. I am not gonna be planting spring garlic this year because I already have fall garlic planted out in my garden, so I can skip the spring garlic. Next is sweet potato plants. I had struggles last year with sweet potato plants. Number one, they were ridiculously expensive to ship to my place, and Berlin Seed didn't have all the varieties that I wanted. They do have Vardaman this year. I'm gonna get Vardaman, but they don't have Covington, and Covington is my all-time favorite sweet potato. So what I think I'm gonna do this year is I'm gonna try again to grow my own off of one of our sweet potatoes and see if it works out. I have tried that in the past, and the plants looked beautiful. I was like, it was very simple to start them myself, but then the actual potato from the plants that I started myself, they were a light color and they were kind of dry and powdery, and I don't know what I did wrong. So I'm scared to try it again because I don't want like a whole crop of sweet potatoes. That's not very good. But I'm gonna try it again. I am gonna buy like half of them from Berlin Seed because they do have the variety that I want. Then I'm gonna try to grow the rest myself.
The reason that we choose the varieties we do with sweet potatoes, the reason we're not getting Georgia Jets and Beauregard, is because those are not bush varieties. We really want to get bush varieties because I'm usually the one that has to do most of the potato digging, and if they're not bush varieties, they will spread way out, and some of the potatoes will start growing farther out, and you literally have to dig up like your entire potato patch to find the potatoes. So if you get bush varieties, they'll grow right under the base of the plant, and it's really easy to dig them out. So we're very picky with what varieties we plant of sweet potatoes.
I'm gonna shoot for around 40 sweet potato plants. Winter here in Ohio can get pretty dreary, not a whole lot of sunlight going on, and come January and February, I really start to feel the effects of not having all of that sun in my eyes. In the past, I've struggled a lot with SAD, or seasonal affective disorder, and a lot of the symptoms that come with that for me are weight loss and dark circles under my eyes, really low mood overall, and just kind of feeling like the world is caving in around me. I don't struggle with SAD nearly as much anymore as I used to because I'm really intentional in the wintertime about getting exercise, getting outside every single day. I also take a vitamin D supplement, and I have full spectrum light bulbs at a few spots in my house where I spend a lot of time. But the thing that has helped me more than anything over the years is therapy. BetterHelp is the sponsor of today's video, and one of their therapists might be just what you need to get past your winter blues, whatever it is that you're struggling with this winter, whether it's relationship issues or just good old overwhelm. To get started with BetterHelp, just head over to their website by using our link, answer a few questions, and they'll match you up with one of their licensed therapists who has years of experience helping people with struggles just like yours. You'll usually get matched up within 48 hours, which is really cool because you you can get started quickly. And with BetterHelp, you meet up with your therapist via phone call, video chat, or messaging, whichever you prefer. It works really well for us because we have to drive kind of far to get to a therapist, so we can just do it from home. So visit the link in the description or choose our channel at sign up to get a special discount on your first month of therapy.
Next up is our carrots. That's a big staple for us. They store really well. We store those in a refrigerator in the basement, and they will store all winter long. We plant Danver half long is what they used to be called, and here they're called Danvers 126. It's the same thing. They are an heirloom open pollinated variety, and we really try to plant as many heirloom and open pollinated varieties as possible. We do plant some things hybrid, but we try to stick with that as much as possible. And we're only planting one variety of carrots just because they always work so well for us. I get a little bit nervous. Yeah, I get a little bit nervous only planting one variety of something in case it doesn't do as well, like the problems we've had with the potatoes in the past. But for carrots, they've always done so well. Danvers are a lot easier to dig than other varieties because they are a thicker, shorter carrot instead of long and skinny. If they're long and skinny, they go way down in there and they're just hard to pull out, especially without breaking.
Tomatoes are very, very important to me. I'm meticulous with the ones that I choose because I can all of our own sauces like barbecue sauce, ketchup, salsas. First of all, I'm gonna grow Amish paste. They're an indeterminate tomato. They're an heirloom. I love them. They produce these big, fat, juicy tomatoes for me. I'm gonna swap up our tomato varieties just a little bit this year. I've been planting Celebrity Plus for the last, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 years, and I do really love them. They're determinate tomatoes, so they're very easy to contain, very easy to take care of, and the disease resistance is amazing, but the flavor of the tomatoes isn't like incredible. It's good, but it's not incredible. I always use those for canning, and then we always eat the Amish paste ones as slicing tomatoes. So I think I'm going to still plant a couple Celebrity Plus because I don't want to change things up too much. But I'm also going to experiment with a couple other varieties this year. One of them is Galahad and Chef's Choice Orange. I have been doing Carolina Gold. Excellent tomato. They're a determinate tomato, very easy to contain. But here again, the flavor I think could be improved on a little bit, so I'm going to try Chef's Choice Orange instead. Another variety that I think I'm gonna try this year is Bush Ace. Probably what I will do is just plant one plant of these that I'm experimenting with and just see how they do right next to each other. If one gets disease first, I'll know that I probably don't want to plant that next year. Another one, Cody, you had one that you wanted.
Mountain Man.
I think he just chose it for the name.
Could be. But it does say that it's a nice large tomato and then it has really good disease resistance, multiple harvests, and it's possibly good for container gardening. We're not sure how much sun we're gonna have on our porch if it's gonna be good enough for tomatoes. Yeah. So this we might try in a container, but there's a good chance it'll be out in the regular garden.
I'm gonna be planting somewhere from 10 to 15 tomato plants. Last year I only did 10 because I didn't need quite as many tomato products because I had made so many the year before. But it ended up I still had tomatoes running out of my ears. By the end of the season, I was just giving like bushels of tomatoes away to my friends because I couldn't use them all. So I probably won't go much over 10 this year. As for butternuts, I don't even have to look in the magazine. I know what I want. I want the Waltham butternuts. I've tried others over the years and I always come back to Waltham. So just to recap here, if I only had a small space, but I was wanting to make a big dent in my family's self-sufficiency, those are the things that I would make sure that I have in my garden. We have a bigger garden. We've expanded our garden over the years. So I have all those staples covered, but now I'm also going to be adding a bunch of other things in just to kind of fill in the cracks. One of the most important things that I like to grow in my garden is broccoli. I do broccoli because it's so easy. There's this big old head, you just cut it off and right there you have a whole bunch of vegetable without having to go and just like pick green beans and pick and pick and pick. I get the variety Imperial and I am going to get these from a greenhouse. I don't actually start these from seed at home because I have found that broccoli and cauliflower and cabbage, they're just a little bit finicky to grow and I just prefer to get them at a greenhouse.
We have found if you don't do a really, really good job of starting your seeds, if they start out not doing so great, that affects them later on. They're not gonna produce as well, they're not gonna be as disease resistant, and the broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, those are just seem to be extra hard and we've had a lot worse luck with those. Some of the other things like tomatoes we do really well with, but couple of these we get from a greenhouse.
I've just noticed that if you plant a broccoli plant that isn't like spot on, it just gets like a tiny little head, and I just had so many issues. It was just easier for me to support our local greenhouse with this one. Next is green beans. Last year I did not plant any green beans because I had so many that were canned and in the freezer, but I am working my way through those this winter, and I hope to have all of those gone through. The kind that I always come back to is Contender. They're heirloom, open pollinated, and I just love them. Nice straight green bean. I'm also gonna try Burpee stringless this year. I don't know the exact amount of green beans that I'm gonna plant, but I'm guessing I'll just do like one raised bed full and call it good. I might also try these in containers.
Another kind of add-in thing is sweet corn. We did that last year. I really, really like that we've got that in our freezer. It's so tasty to go along with meals, so we're gonna be planting that again, and we are gonna be doing incredible.
My mom planted that growing up, so that's what I'm gonna do. And in the magazine, it's a bestseller, so obviously it's a really good one. Cody wants to do something new this year. I wouldn't say this is just new for us. We've done it before, but I had slacked off because I didn't have a grain mill. This year we're hoping to get a grain mill, so he is wanting to do dent corn.
Several years ago, we had planted dent corn, and we made cornbread with it that was just out of this world good.
So good.
So good. I'd really like to try that again, and the varieties that we're going to do this year are Bloody Butcher and Reed's Yellow Dent. Those are both open pollinated and heirloom varieties. The Bloody Butcher is a really cool one. It's red and it grows really, really tall. It's crazy, and it will make like kind of a reddish, purple, pinkish cornbread that looks pretty cool. And the Reed's Yellow Dent is yellow, and that one had like made a bright yellow cornbread that was pretty cool.
For my dried beans this year, I am just gonna be saving seed from the ones I grew last year, so I'm not actually gonna order any for that, except I do want to do navy beans. It's like a white bean, and I just think they're really pretty and would be really good in like a white chicken chili or something. So I'm gonna do some navy beans and the dark red kidney and the tiger's eye and the black turtle beans. Those were all just so good. Wildflowers is next. This is something that obviously we don't eat, but I think it's important to be drawing all those pollinators in the garden. And last year my wildflowers made me so happy. They brought in butterflies, hummingbirds, bees, all kinds of things. So I'm just gonna get a blend. Last year I went to Walmart and grabbed packets, but it got kind of expensive, so I'm gonna buy them in bulk this year. I'm gonna get an annual mix low grow and then also a beneficial insectary blend. And then I'm gonna grab a couple other flowers too. One of them is called Flamingo Feather. It just looks like kind of a fun grass with like purple plumes. And I think the rest of my flowers I'm gonna get at a local greenhouse, because getting a whole packet of seeds and then only starting a few, I don't know, it just feels kind of like a waste of seeds. And flowers can also be a little bit trickier to start at home. Next is sweet peppers. We don't actually grow hot peppers because I hate them. You kind of like them, but I just don't really make spicy food just for one person, so it's not our thing. I still have Big Red and Orange Blaze and California Wonder left over from last year. Those all did really well for me, so I'm gonna do all those again. I'm gonna have to order some more Jimmy Nardellos because those are Cozy's favorite. My kids really want the lunchbox mix, which is like these little peppers. You can get them at Aldi in a bag. They're just really cute and colorful. And something new I want to do this year is sweet banana peppers. I think maybe I want to do those in a container, I'm not sure. But I really want to have those to pickle. You know how like at Pizza Hut they put those banana peppers on pizzas and stuff? I want to try that.
I would have more thought Subway. That's where I remember it.
When it comes to cucumbers, I don't know. I feel like I messed up a little bit with all of my trials last year because in the same bed I just planted a whole bunch of different varieties.
So now you barely know which one is which.
And yeah, it was really hard to tell them apart then. They all kind of just did the same. So I have Diamant and Homemade Pickle left over, and so I'm just gonna plant those this year. I'm not gonna buy any cucumbers. Cabbage. My favorite variety of cabbage is Stonehead. I go for that every single year and I get it at the greenhouse. I do not start those at home. Next is zucchini. How do you feel about zucchini? Do you like it?
I like the zucchini brownies that you make.
So lame.
I actually do really like the sliced and fried zucchini.
But the kids hate it. I have never made a zucchini dish. Like I've made the zucchini fritters. I do all kinds of stuff with zucchini and my kids just hate it. They're like, ooh, it's squash. I'm gonna do one plant because one thing they do like, the only two ways that my family will eat zucchini is zucchini relish to put on like hot dogs and hamburgers. And then Brownies. I have a horrible problem growing zucchini. It gets
we don't
fungus.
fit that stereotype of like sneaking zucchini into other people's homes and vehicles and stuff. They're a struggle for us.
But one zucchini variety, it's not actually zucchini, I know that. We call it zucchini because we use it like zucchini. It's summer squash. But the only one that works for us is called
Sunburst.
Sunburst. One year I planted Sunburst squash, which is like a patty pan squash, and then I planted, I think, 2 other varieties of summer squash beside it. The Sunburst just kept on and on and on and on and just like never stopped. It did end up dying then, but it way outperformed the others. The squash beetles didn't like it as much. The next one is something that I don't normally plant, but Cody is going to plant this year. He insisted.
I love watermelon, and we've tried it in the past. Did not work out so well. We just have real struggles with growing anything vining, anything squash type
Pumpkins,
or whatever.
squash.
Yeah. Pumpkins is another thing that I want to do sometime, but probably not this year. But something that I want to do is watermelon, and I also mentioned in our New Year's goals video, whatever, that I want to do another arched trellis. So I want to try watermelon on an arched trellis. That way it would have really good airflow. And I found one in here called Yellow Doll, and it says can be grown on a trellis. It's a smaller watermelon, so it won't be as heavy. I don't know if I'll need to support them or not, but I think it'd be at least worth a try to give it a little bit of an extra chance to not get eaten up by bugs or disease as quickly being on a trellis like that.
I'm completely out of lettuce seeds this year. Often that's something that kind of carries over from year to year, but I'm completely out. I'm gonna try a couple new things. I'm gonna try Ariana, Butter Crunch, Red Fire, and then my staple, which is Winter Density. I keep that on hand all the time because that's the variety that works really well in my raised bed outside the house when it gets really cold outside. The Winter Density that I planted out there lasted me this year until into January. I have plans for another rocking herb garden this year. I still have some parsley seeds, dill seeds. I'm going to do more chamomile, basil, calendula, probably a few other things. Some of them are perennial, so they'll come up again next year, like my sage and my thyme. And I think maybe lavender should come up again. I'll just kind of have to look into that a little bit more. One that I want to add is lobelia. My mom used to give that to us when we were kids as a like decongestant. And so I just thought it would be really fun to try that. It has really pretty purple flowers that I think would look really great in my herb garden.
Sorry, that just sounds like a libido plant.
I'm also thinking that it would be really fun to have some herbs in pots up on my porch. So I'm gonna have to study into that a little bit and see which ones are good with partial shade. Now for the fun part.
First part wasn't fun?
Honestly, I don't know much about this. I am not the authority on container gardening at all. My mom always had a huge in-ground garden. I don't know anything about container gardening, which is why I'm doing it. I want to stretch myself, get better at something else. I also would really like to connect with a lot of you guys who don't have big garden spaces. I have some things that I think would work great. The porch that I'm going to be working on, one side is sunny in the morning, the other side is sunny during like in the more evening hours. And so what I'm thinking is maybe getting some pots, some like a tower garden on wheels that I can move from one side to the next. That sounds a little bit cumbersome to me. But on the other hand, I'm going to shoot to grow things that can handle partial shade. So if some days I don't get it moved, or if we're gone for the weekend or something, it should still be fine. And I might also get some containers to set off of the porch somewhere. We'll see once. First of all, I think I'm going to try to grow peas. Sugar Snap Tender Sweet. They're open pollinated. It says that the plants are only 18 to 22 inches tall, so they're easy to support. I think that sounds perfect for a pot. Something else I would like to try to grow is some red beets. I can grow these out in my garden, but it's not something that everybody loves, and so I was like, why not grow it in here in a pot on the porch? The kind of red beet that I usually get is Detroit Dark Red. Another thing that I'm probably the most excited about is cucumbers. I found these little cucumbers called Quick Snack in here, and they look so cute and fun if they work. Like, it's hard for me to imagine them working in a pot. I just have a really hard time with the concept of growing something in a pot. Another thing that I found was sweet pea tomatoes. They have like cool, tiny little tomatoes that I think are absolutely adorable. I'm also thinking of growing some like large tomatoes in a pot. I couldn't have it on the porch. Those definitely need full sun. Probably try Cody's Mountain Man tomatoes in a container. This next thing is probably something that Cody's not really gonna approve of, which is fine. I will eat it. Chinese cabbage. It's something my mom used to grow, and it makes a really good crunchy salad. And I read somewhere that the like brassicas and some of like the kale, lettuces, things like that do really well in the shade. So I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna choose a purple Chinese cabbage called Merlot.
That would be Merlot.
I'm also going to try a purple kohlrabi. That's another thing from my childhood that I love, is kohlrabi. I like to eat it raw with just a sprinkle of salt. So good.
My dad grew those one year. I did not like them.
They're delicious. I also want to try arugula in a pot. That's supposed to do well in the shade.
Job,
and also some kale. I want to try like the dinosaur kale. As for the flowers that I'm going to grow, I don't really know yet. I'm just going to go to the greenhouse and then get my sister-in-law to help me pick out flowers that like the shade. She's the one who's in charge of the greenhouse, so she knows all about it.
If you live close to Columbus, Ohio, you should check out Yoni's greenhouse.
Yes. We love the practices that they use in their greenhouse. They don't just spray things willy-nilly. They actually care about the health of plants and people alike. Another thing that I want to do just for fun is baby broccoli. I've never tried that before, but it looks like something that could do really well in a pot. Basically, it's just like a form of broccoli. It's just small, probably kind of like side shoots that would come after you cut off a big head of broccoli. I also want to do radishes. Those are really simple. I think I'm just gonna go with Pink Beauty because they take the least amount of time to maturity, and they are open pollinated and heirloom. I don't know if these will work or not, but gooseberries supposedly work really well in containers.
That sounds fun.
They have one called Pixwell. That's actually the only one they have in this magazine. And it said it's a very low maintenance bush, tolerates partial shade. The other things that I like to get from Berlin Seed are fertilizers and cover crops. We always go scrambling for cover crops when fall comes. So I think this year we're just gonna get it right away. My favorite is buckwheat, so we'll probably just stick with that. If we need any soil amendments, we get those from Berlin Seed as well. Berlin Seed is located in Holmes County, Ohio. And so we just drive there. We just take a day trip, hang out in Holmes County for the day, pick up our stuff, and come back.
It's fun.
If you order any sweet potato slips or plants of any kind, they will send them out to you at the proper time for you to plant them in your zone. Berlin Seed also has an amazing selection of organic sprays that you can use if you have certain like disease or pest issues. So this is honestly just like a one-stop shop. I love it so much. Like I said, we are not sponsored. It's just my favorite seed magazine of all time.
And not only do they have all the sprays, but they're really helpful about figuring out what sprays you might want for your garden. You can call them up, ask them questions. They'll help you figure out what you need.
As for fertilizers, I get a lot of questions about fertilizers. I get two. I get fish emulsion and seaweed, liquid seaweed. Those are the only two fertilizers besides compost that I ever use.
Maybe you're feeling a little bit like I am right now with all of this winter dreariness and cold going on. You want to see something green and happy and warm. So I will put a tour of our garden from last year right up here on the screen. And you can also then see how our plants looked, all the things that we planted last year, and see how it's laid out and how much of it we did and everything else.
2.5 inch snackers. 2.5. Is that a cucumber this big?